Ooh, we're back, baby. Horns up, talking Texas podcast. Fisher Desopoulos, DJ, Nikki, Snacks, Crider, and maybe what has been the craziest weekend this early in Horns history. For the first time in over a decade, we are the number one team in the nation. And quite frankly, with us, analysts, Horns fans, not Horns fans, I think we are the most confident pick as the best team in the nation by people across the board. And that's saying something considering our starting quarterback went down in the game. Arch Manning comes in, lights the world on fire. ESPN, like I saw a tweet that says like Quinn's body's not even, cold yet. And they're already putting Arch Manning in the graphics, which is kind of disrespectful to Quinn, who is such a massive piece for us beating Michigan on the road last week, was really off to a good start. And I was at a wedding and you guys texted me, other than his apparently really terrible interception, looked absolutely awesome against UTSA. And hopefully he's week to week. And then he will be our starting quarterback again. But Arch Manning comes in, absolutely lights the world on fire. Texas beats UTSA 56-7. We are the number one team in the nation. Before we get to Arch being the number one team in the nation, actual in-game play, what was your guys' takeaways from our romp against UTSA?
Well, this is why you don't transfer. I'll start that off.
Yeah.
All the hoopla early in the season when Quinn was named the starter, of course, and when he returned, people were like, why isn't Arch transferring? Why is he not going somewhere else where he can be the guy? Well, he knew this is kind of a definitely a possibility with Quinn's injury history, and looks like he's going to start next week. So obviously he gets all the praise at Texas. And I even saw, I don't know how we missed this clip, but like I saw a clip of like Arch and his buddy in like middle school. And one kid was like, I want to go to this school. And then Arch has a Texas shirt and goes, I want to go to Texas. Like he's wanted to go to Texas since he was a kid. Mm-hmm. And here he is, lighting it up. That Quinn pick did look really bad, I will say. Overthrew, I think it was Wisner by like 10 feet maybe, and just like air milled it to the corner, like right to the corner. But I do think that he had some injury with his throwing hand before he went down with the oblique injury with the abdominal strain. So could chalk it up to that as well. So he got really banged up in that game, which is not what you want to see, of course. It's like one of the things that we didn't even highlight in our pregame show last week is like, we want to see a clean, healthy game, which is normally what we say when we are playing against a lesser opponent like this. We say, we just want to make sure that we all come out unscathed and healthy. I think, not like we had anything to do with that, but at the end of the day, like we were so fixed on the womping that like we didn't even highlight the fact that we want to stay healthy. And like early in the game, a lot of guys were going down. We saw Malik Muhammad go down. We saw Kelvin Banks go down. We saw Quinn, of course. Jaden Blue was a game day scratch. So
Trey Wisner went
down. So like a team that already is having some depth issues in the running back room with CJ Baxter already out, and the other guy going down early in the season. We can't have these issues, like we have to play a clean game. And you saw early in the game too that Sark threw the ball like 8 times in the first drive, no runs at all. Mm-hmm. And then he kept on tossing it because I think he's trying to preserve this running back room a little bit. And you also see too that like we're a little bit reluctant to give Jarrett Gibson the ball early in games, but when he starts to get in, then we start feeding him a little bit more. It's kind of an interesting script that they have going there. But I mean, play-wise, everything looked amazing. I think the defense showed up as they have been all year. They're kind of the unsung heroes, behind all of the Arch noise and all of the Quinn noise, him being a Heisman favorite. Got in the backfield, got some sacks, had a nice pick 6 at the end of the game, even though that was garbage time, but still it looks good on the scoreboard that we had 50 plus. All of our leaders came out to play. And I think, we got a lot of reps in by everyone, being able to see the field from our walk-ons to our, young guys, to our second string, third stringers. That's the type of game that you want. And then my biggest number one takeaway that I think was that we got so many guys involved in the receiving game early too. I think the first drive, I counted, it was like Niblett got involved, DeAndre Moore got involved, Juan Davis had a catch that got wiped off, Wingo, like Jonte Cook had 2 touchdowns. A couple weeks ago we were talking about, hey, look, at some point we're going to need to figure out a way to keep these guys happy because we don't want to lose them to the transfer portal. We want to have these guys get some more playing time. That's ultimately a looming issue that college football has these days. Guy who's a big recruit doesn't get the playing time that he thinks he should deserve, and he's gone, right? And so I think this week was a perfect week for Sark to say, okay, look, everyone is getting theirs this week. And they did. Everyone got involved, from the young guys to the old guys. Honestly, like the guy who got involved least this week, and he had still 3 catches, was Matthew Golden, my number 1 wide receiver. I mean, obviously Bond showed out. He looked as advertised, had worthy speed almost on the sidelines. I think he's gonna be a first round pick. Like, just
he's projected as such right now. So
exactly, and I think he's gonna stay that way all season long. But getting Jonte, those 2 touchdowns, getting DeAndre Moore his touchdown, Wingo getting his, like, that's huge for our program, for these young guys to get involved early and get a little taste of what it's like to be, wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, being in that roster. So, I mean, it was a lot of fun to watch this game.
Yeah, love that. Toss.
Yeah, I mean, I think what Nick's talking about, the involvement throughout our entire wide receiver room, just speaks, as we've been speaking to this entire season, that Sark is playing the game the right way on the field and also off, the game of college football, the game of recruiting, the game of the transfer portal. And so he's calling these games in a situation where he knows his personnel is much better than the team across the way, that he can mix things up, that he can get guys involved that he might not be able to get involved once it comes to SEC play. But we'll see. I mean, that versatility and that deep bag of tricks is something that he always likes to tap into, no matter what year we've seen him coaching. So hopefully that remains consistent. I would say this is a unique experience watching this game for me, because I've never been so bittersweet as a Texas Longhorn fan, at least since we were in college, because on the field, as far as the 11 players that were on the field did exactly what they needed to do every single moment. But like we talked about, guys were dropping left and right. So injury scares were ever present. The broadcast was scrambling to figure out what was going on with all of these different guys, not giving us updates as to when guys were back on the field. It was oh, there's Banks. Okay, he's okay. Right. It's oh, Wisner got another carry. Okay, thank goodness he's back in there. Okay, where's Quinn? What's the deal with Quinn? He's on the sideline. He's in street clothes. Like, we have no word from him. And finally, we got a little bit of news when Sark and the guys headed into the tunnel. But it was this is a team with championship aspirations, a team that did exactly what they needed to do through the first 2 weeks, a quarterback that was leading the Heisman race, and he goes down early, and he is incredibly demoralized, and he's hanging his head, and he's got his jersey over his head, his towel over his head, because he doesn't want the fans to see his reaction. So we're all assuming the worst. Thankfully, it's a week-to-week injury, and so all of his feelings are completely valid, especially with his injury history that he's had in college. But to me, this was a very bittersweet game, and I want to see Arch excel and succeed, and that's what he did in this game. Now, there were a few, young player mistakes, but those will get corrected. I mean, he played the bulk of this game, right? He played 3 quarters. He will play against Louisiana Lafayette the entire game, or he will start the game, right? And there's a different ambiance, there's a different vibe with doing that. We saw that last year with Malik Murphy when he came in. So I'm excited to see Arch thrusted into that position, because I think he will rise to the challenge. He looked confident in his ability, which was awesome. And obviously he stepped up and he made some throws and he made some plays, and he showcased his athleticism with that run, which everyone and your mother saw, like all of college football, all of the NFL was talking about it. And it was incredibly exciting to see that reaction to our backup quarterback, especially. I think it even hits more home, right? Because we're the team that was playing Spencer Rattler when Caleb Williams came in and came back and beat us in that Red River rivalry 3 or 4 years ago, whenever it was now at this point. And so we know that feeling of a backup quarterback coming in and unseating us not the case and not the situation in this UTSA game, but to showcase that we have that depth in the quarterback room. I thought Trey Owens got in there and he didn't get a lot of opportunities to throw the ball, but when he was asked to, it looked nice. He ripped it, and he had a
Vibe guy.
He had a nice deep throw to the outside where it was the long side of the field, and he showcased his arm strength. And so I thought that was really impressive for a true freshman coming into the game. So all in all, as Nick said, it was complete. We had 25 plus players on the defensive side play. A lot of guys caught passes. We showcased our speed. There were so many good things in this game, but it was bittersweet for me because of just Quinn going down and other guys going down and what all those injuries can mean for our team. Thankfully, the only long-standing injury is the Quinn injury, and hopefully he's back sooner than later. But an abdominal strain is not something that, 1 week later, it's all good. Like there will be, no, you can't rush it, and he's gonna have to work through it too. It's not like I don't know. It's not like an ankle where you can tape it up like that. Like your abs are involved in almost every single play, especially as a quarterback when you're talking about throwing the ball. That power starts in your core, starts in your base, your legs, and your core. So it's a very important injury and one that I know our staff will take care of in the proper way. But I just want to see that guy get healthy because again, he was the Heisman front runner. He was a guy that there were murmurs around him being the 1-1 next year in the NFL draft. I think no matter what, even if he didn't play another game the rest of the season, which he's not going to, like he's going to play games the rest of the season for the Texas Longhorns. But even if he had not, he was still deserving of a first round pick, in my opinion, of just showcasing what he did, or at least an early second. So point being, Quinn staying was the right decision because he's already showcased what he can do from an NFL standpoint, and making NFL type throws and managing an offense with the prowess of an NFL quarterback. So I've got nothing but respect and adoration for that guy, and just hope he gets back healthy quick.
I agree. But my question to you guys is that at what point in your history of injuries does it start to actually knock down your draft stock? Because
it's there. It's there. I think it
just depends it depends on the type of injury. So if it's like he's continuously, for example, getting banged up in his legs and ankles and his knees, then it becomes a serious issue because it's the same thing over and over again. I feel like with Quinn, it's just
different. I mean, it's been upper body every time. We've had the shoulder, we've had the abdominal.
Yeah. Toss and I have had this discussion with just really crazy cross sport. I know we don't usually do this on the show, but like OG Anunoby on the Knicks, like so many injuries, but they're all kind of different injuries. So it's not like the same thing over and over again. So I think that's like the savings grace. And I think our schedule coming up, we have obviously, Monroe coming up, and then we have Mississippi State, a bye before we go to the Red River game against an OU team who's not the OU team of a couple years ago. Still good, better than the team that we beat 49-0. But I think a team that we should beat with Arch or with Quinn. Hopefully Quinn's in there by the time, but I don't think there's a crazy rush to get him back based off what we saw with Arch, and based off of the schedule we have coming up. We have to win these games, like Mississippi State as quote unquote, like in the easier games. We saw what happened with Georgia. They were a 24.5 point favorite against the Kentucky team has got nothing to lose at home, and they barely got out of there unscathed. Like they came out by the skin of their teeth. And I was just pulling something up because you said everyone and their mother saw that. Well, you guys were giving me updates because again, I was at a wedding and we were all trying to watch the game. And you guys were giving me great updates, but you weren't the only one. Fan of the show by my mother. I'm getting these texts. Manning in, Ewers hurt. Manning came in. Ewers doesn't look serious. UTSA 22-yard, 53-yard touchdown dash. Ugh. Manning, an all-cap 67-yard run. So, yes, everyone and their mother is literally watching Manning and going crazy for him. And you know what? Yes, it's bittersweet. We want Quinn to be healthy. We don't want the quarterback controversy. We don't want the media to tear this room apart. But I don't think it will. I think these guys are friends. I think Manning ultimately knows he has to come in here and do what he has to do for the team. Eventually, it will be his squad. And if he comes out, he balls out on the time he plays. Quinn comes in, he balls out too. Guess what? Manning can't go to the NFL draft this year anyway. If we're talking for his future, it's really for next year. So if he comes in, looks great, it's like, oh my God, Arch is the favorite to go first overall for the right reasons, not just because of the last name on his back. and then he comes in and it's his team next year and he balls out, great. And Trey Owens gets in the game. You know, he's a 3-star recruit, but he still is a guy that people were really hyped about. You're saying he looks good. Last time we were ranked number 1 in the nation, I'm pretty sure there was another 3-star recruit under center for us, and Mr. Colt McCoy, who was coming in to fill some big shoes after Vince Young. So the quarterback room depth is massive. The wide receiver room, like looking at the stat sheet and, you know, watching the highlights and recaps of the game, Wingo is, you know, every bit as advertised. Great to see Cook get involved. I do think Bond, and I know you like Golden Nick, but I do think Bond's our best receiver. I think he is on par with A.D. Mitchell and the Xavier Worthies of the world. And I think you're right. He is worthy, no pun intended, of an eventual first-round pick. My question to you guys, as far as the defensive side goes, is Colin Simmons our best defensive player?
Not yet, but he will be. I mean, as a freshman already, he's probably going to get freshman all SEC honors, maybe all American honors. We'll see. But I mean, I texted you guys that he's going to be a first round draft pick one day. I mean, he's already, because I mean, all of the defensive line or the offensive linemen that he's going against are, you know, upperclassmen, left and right tackles. So it's like you're already kind of playing bully ball with those guys who are older than you and more experienced than you, maybe stronger than you, but he's getting it done, you know. I still think AJ Anthony Hills is our best defender.
The two of them led the team in tackles, right, in this game against UTSA. So I agree with you, Nick. I think the experience of him playing an entire season as a true freshman last year gives him that advantage. To me, I watched Colin very closely in this game. He's just so raw. Like, the talent is there, and it is of a first round grade, like you're talking about. His move set to get to the quarterback right now is quite simplistic. Like, he needs to add more tools to his bag, because right now it's kind of just like, let me kind of duck under with my speed and get past this tackle on the outside, which guess what? He's really good at, and against UTSA, it works more often than not. But he will have to kind of advance in that way and become more mature as a player, when to go, when to slow, what tool to use on a particular guy. And then, you know, finishing the job. Obviously, that's the last thing that comes with being a good edge rusher, is once you get him in the grasp, are you taking him down? Are you going for the ball? I mean, I'll just, like, this is an NFL guy that I'm going to mention who I just think is the best linebacker in the league. Fred Warner is so good for the San Francisco 49ers at punching the ball out of a ball carrier's hand. It is absurd. And that's why, to me, he's the best linebacker. And that's why Troy Polamalu is so good, is because it's not just about getting to the guy, but it's also about making a play on the ball and giving your team an opportunity to go the other way. So I think Simmons is an unbelievable talent, but he does have room to grow. And I'm excited to see that growth. But yeah, I mean, when I think about our defense, I still go to our defensive backfield as far as who our most talented and most ready guys are. Makuba was all over the place in this game. Jahdae Barron had a fumble recovery. Didn't have a forced fumble, but he had a fumble recovery in this game once again. So I count that as a turnover. So 3 games straight. And Burke, like Nick mentioned, had that pick 6, which was awesome to see him get involved. Baron Sorrell was deep in the backfield on one play where they had like an 8-yard tackle for loss, which was awesome to see. Been waiting to see him get involved. I did think, you know, like your mom pointed out via text to you, Josh, they did break that one run loose. I thought our angles and approach from the safety position on some plays weren't great in this game. But again, there was a lot going on. So I thought that I give us some leniency, because it's tough to stay mentally with it when you're at home, your quarterback's gone down, you're winning by 25 plus points. Everything's going right. You're feeling the hype from Arch. You're feeling the hype from the crowd, and you got to stay focused. But ultimately, we did what we needed to do. But I thought there were a couple of glimpses where I was like, don't know if that was the best angle. Let's make sure we're holding the edge, because we have the speed to keep anyone inside and go and get them, just defensively. But I mean, small critiques here.
Yeah, no, I mean, you have to get better game by game. And I think the Gibson point's interesting. I don't mind kind of using him in a fresh legs notion, where the game has gone on a little bit, and then we bring in Gibson, who's like a potential bell cow kind of guy, and let him pound when the defense is a little ragged and tired on the opposition side. All that being said, yes, it's nice to start a game 7 of 8 or whatever it was, or 7 of 7 or 7 of 9, but you don't want to necessarily just come out and just throw like 11 straight passes. You do want to mix up the game, work the play action, get other things going. So hopefully with Blue healthy in the coming weeks, we get that back in the early downs of the game. Just a very crazy notion that we might be playing, knock on wood, we might be hosting the Georgia Bulldogs as the number 1 team, which is, I don't think, something we really considered, going into this, but they look pretty sus to say the least. And that Alabama Crimson Tide team, and what everyone thought was a kind of a interesting and peculiar showing week 2, a very box score friendly showing, that masked a lot of things. Alabama was completely dominant this last week. So I think that Bama Georgia game, before we even have to host Georgia, has huge implications on the season. And they, quite frankly, just looking at the tape, Bama looks a lot scarier than the Georgia Bulldogs. Again, I'm not excited to see the Georgia Bulldogs. It's a very tough game, to host, but that Bama Crimson Tide team looks really dangerous. If I were to say there was another team out there that's looking kind of lethal.
I think it's worth mentioning that Wisconsin's starting QB also went down very early in that game. They took care of business, but they were playing against a backup quarterback, and that certainly does a lot of things. As we saw throughout college football, LSU was able to come back against South Carolina because on the last 3 drives, South Carolina went run, punt, run, punt every single possession because their backup quarterback was in there. It makes a huge difference. Milroe is on fire and he's playing really, really well. And obviously that rookie, that freshman wide receiver is an absolute stud.
He is a rookie, Ryan Williams.
Rookie. Yeah, I mean, it goes both ways. But
17
so I'm
years
not
old.
Nothing to take away. To your larger point, it was like going into this season, who's going to take the reins of the SEC now that Nick Saban's not coaching Alabama? Kalen DeBoer's a great coach. Jalen Milroe is a Heisman caliber quarterback, and this Alabama football team is great in the trenches, and they know how to win football games. So not so fast, my friend, to quote Lee Corso. I will say the one thing about the Kentucky-Georgia game, Kentucky knows, as they did last year with Ray Davis, they know how to run the football between the tackles. And to what Nick was talking about, part of the reason why we probably don't want to give Gibson the rock early is because, as we saw later in the game, he fumbled, right? And you got to take care of the ball if you are a freshman. Like that, if you don't, you're not going to stay on the field. So we need Blue. We need Blue back bad, because to me, he is kind of like the A version of what Wisner does. Like everything that Wisner does, Blue does, but he does better. And then when Blue is in there and it's Blue and Gibson, then I think when Wisner gets in, it's like, he can do a different thing now. Like go in and give us something completely unique. So we need all 3 of those guys, or else we're not going to be able to kind of bash and mash the same way that Kentucky did against Georgia. And I think that seemingly is their weakest part of their team, is that if you eat at their run defense, you can kind of get into them a little bit. So that's just one thing I wanted to point out about that game. It was also on the road, though.
And I wanted to mention in the show, too, that like, despite the fumble by Gibson, this is the game that you want that to happen. If you're going to do it, get it out of the way now. Because as a freshman, he hasn't fumbled yet. It's kind of an awakening, like, okay, you have a lesson learned. You had your lesson learned in the UTSA blowout, okay? Let's not let it happen again. Bijan, unfortunately, had that happen to him in a very pivotal situation against Texas Tech a couple years ago in overtime, where it cost us the game. So you don't want to be in that moment. You want it to be in a moment where it's kind of meaningless, I mean, it means something, but I'm honestly glad that he fumbled, because he knows that he is not, made of steel. He's got to, protect the ball at all costs. So it's a lesson learned. And for a freshman who's looked pretty impressive, like, I'm glad we got that now than in the Mississippi State game or the Kentucky game or even the Georgia game.
No
yeah.
doubt.
I mean, and the injuries as well, too. Yeah, 100%. I mean, and again, I'm just looking at that Kentucky, you're completely right, Toss. Like they didn't keep it close with rocket science. They won time of possession by 11 minutes. Georgia had 9 penalties to their 4. That's it, but then it's just really interesting. We're the number 1 team. Yes. Georgia was the hype team coming in with Oregon and Ohio State. I'm not saying, those teams have fallen off. I think Oregon kind of this weekend came out and was like, all right, we got it together. we're good. I think Notre Dame came out. It's like, you know what? We fell asleep at the wheel last week. I think we could pick it up a little bit too. And then you have your Ole Misses, your Tennessees. You guys are big Cam Ward guys, and I have to put respect on his name after this past weekend. Like, there are other teams in college football this year. You know, Utah, Oklahoma State's not like yes, we beat the crap out of Oklahoma State last year in the Big 12 championship, but they were there. We're gone. OU's gone. There are a couple of really interesting teams in college football this year. And I think this Kentucky game, I'm not saying Georgia's not going to be there when it's all said and done. I'm not saying they're going to drop a game even, but I think Kentucky put the world on notice. It says, you know what? No one's invincible here. Everyone's susceptible. Even South Carolina almost taking care of business against LSU. And LSU got lucky that quarterback who's electric got hurt. Yeah. So really interesting weekend in college football. But great that we're number one. Feels amazing. Sark was clearly the guy to turn the program around, implement an amazing offense. It's great to see him have his redemption, our university have a redemption. It just feels so fitting on both behalves that this is like the partnership that has gotten the Horns back to, you know, college football's top dog, because we are right now. We are the bona fide number one team in the nation, with fans, with people who are, you know, covering the game, with former players. Like, this really feels like a true and deserved number one team. It doesn't feel like there's anybody on our schedule who we should fear, quite frankly.
Also, how cool that, like, it's UTSA, and obviously, like, I get it, it's San Antonio, but like the entire Spurs basketball team is there. Manu Ginobili's there, Mo Bamba's there as always, McConaughey's there.
Really cool.
Like, if you're a recruit at that game and you're like, wait, this is UTSA, like this is the third game on the schedule where it's just kind of like a tune-up game, but like we're having all these celebs and all these people, you know, on the sideline, like this is badass. And like, of course, the stadium is packed and, you know, it's louder than any other game in the season. Like, this is a cool culture that Texas has been able to build. And, you know, got to give a lot of credit to CDC. He's always on the sideline looking his best dressed out there, you know, getting people on the field, getting McConaughey involved. You know, like I said, the Undertaker is always on the sideline. Like, this is one of those places where it's like, it's not even just about football. Like, it's culture too. You're getting some culture when you come to Austin.
Like Quinn, yes, Quinn's on the street clothes, but there's a clip going around of Quinn and McConaughey arm in arm. Like, it was hand. Like, if you're the starting quarterback and like there's all this media question like around, what better reassurance to be like things are going to be a-okay for you and your job and for this university than literally Matthew McConaughey ushering you back onto the field. Like, everyone's like, no one can be like, oh, it's not his job. McConaughey is literally being like, it's pretty much like, this is our guy still. You're going to be all right. Just go enjoy the game. Like, giving him like, that's who you're getting advice from. Like, it reminds me of, I mean, Lendale, like our buddy Lendale White used to say that Snoop Dogg would pick him up after class. Like, they would like, which is like hilarious. I mean, that duo must have that.
I wonder what they did after class.
Yeah, I wonder what they did after class for sure. I mean, that duo must have been freaking hysterical to be around. But like, he's like, that's what the vibe was. Like, we just had celebrities at our games. Like,
there's not a lot of college, like, universities that can offer that experience.
Name any.
There's two. It's USC and us, and I think we're even above them now. Maybe in the early 2000s.
Well, it's all about who's the best right now too, right? That adds that extra element.
They're good. I mean, they've been good. They've had Caleb Williams. They've had a Heisman winner. They're good. I mean, like,
but there was an aura. There was an aura around, even with Caleb. There was an aura, and some of it probably attributes to how Caleb interacted, and you got to see a lot more of that up close and personal than we did. There was an aura about that team that it was Caleb and everyone else. That it was Caleb is incredible, but the team is limited. Right. And we just got the number one ranking in a game where our QB just went down, the guy that was the Heisman frontrunner. And I don't know. Honestly, I don't even think we talked about it enough. Like, let's not sugarcoat it. Arch Manning is a baller. Like, he is really, really, really ridiculously good at quarterback. He is.
I think
his top speed was higher than Tyreek Hill's.
I think someone brought up a good point though. He's amazing, but he still isn't completely ready yet. I mean,
for sure. Our buddy Ryan, who texted in our group text. Yeah.
He obviously made some amazing plays, but like they were like one play drive type plays, you know, like the Wingo touchdown. It was one play and that was it. That was the drive. It was over, right? Like, obviously he has his 67-yard touchdown run. Like, that shortens the drive too. But when he had those, you know, when he was backed up on the end zone, like, kind of waited in the pocket a little bit long, you know, took some hits that he probably didn't have to, like didn't throw the ball away, you know, maybe had a couple of missed throws. Like,
not a perfect game by any
pain.
stretch. Absolutely. But I think at the end of the day, you have to respect that he also came in cold and first play touchdown, right?
He had 3 50+ yard touchdowns.
Well, I will say one of those is just a screen pass where Nick's Isaiah Bond
counts. Yeah, I mean Bond, but like that's utilizing. It's a great play call by Sark.
You got to get the ball out to the. You got to get the ball.
You got to run the play, man.
Honestly, my favorite play by him was the Jonte Cook fade in the end zone. That throw was perfect.
High level.
That's a real quarter. That's a throw you got to make.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's a throw if you see people struggle with.
The catch you got to make. That catch was insane too.
Also, the contested catch, 30-yard pass to Wingo, where he put it right where only Wingo could really get it or have the best opportunity to get it, and then massive credit to Wingo for pulling it down and catching it through contact. And then the other touchdown pass to Wingo where he sticks in the pocket. You know, you're a young quarterback. You know you can run. Yes, he's a big body and he knows how big he is. But a guy that's backed up in his own zone or backed up on his own 25 a lot of times gets skittish there and tries to tuck it and run for 10 yards, 5 yards. But he stays in the pocket collapsing, and he dials that throw on the rope to Wingo. Still an impressive throw. And like, I'm with you. Like it was not a perfect game. And it would have been cool if he had shown us the drive that Quinn put together at the very beginning of the game. Like if he went 8 throws and went 8 for 8, we'd be like, okay, Arch, like, what are you doing? Like, change the eligibility rules for this guy, like right now. But he did so many things right coming in cold, which is so difficult to do as a backup QB. So I'm incredibly excited to see what he comes to the table with in a game where he starts. I don't think he's going to have the same like Malik Murphy vibe when he walks out, because that's just not how he does it. He's just stoic. But the guy,
Murphy, who's playing well, by the way.
But the guys, you can tell though, the guys know he's good. You can.
I don't know. I agree. You guys watch the game in its totality, and I'm just watching like snippets, or we're trying to catch it as it's going. It doesn't look like things missed a beat. Like it doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like, oh my God, the backup's in. Like, what are we gonna do? Like it's not going well. It feels like we've outscored teams 139-19 in the first 3 games.
I mean, is it a coincidence that we have the number 2 and the number 4 receiver in the nation committed to us for next year's class? Like they want to play with him. They want this.
He's like, it already kind of is like that. And he's not even our first string quarterback. It's going to be like Tebow. It's going to be like Burrow. It's going to be like Cam Newton. It's going to be that mania. Hopefully, knock on wood, have 1 year of a guy who's that level. No offense to Quinn. Like, again, like I don't want to like poo-poo like what he's able to do, when he's going to be able to do, and what I think he still will do for us this season. But it's amazing to see. It's just Arch is so much hype. And there's so much like, is this too much hype? Is this going to work out? And in this small sample size, yes, against UTSA, but coming in like off cold, like ready to go, not missing a beat. Like you have to be pretty blown away and pretty stoked of what we saw. Like you're right. This he's everything that was advertised in this small sample size. I mean, again, like Colorado State, like, yes, the game was not as tight against Colorado. They lost 28-9. Like we beat them 52-0. We murdered them. We murdered UTSA. We beat the you-know-what out of Michigan. Like, I don't know. We're dangerous, bro.
And coming into this Louisiana Monroe game, we're a 44.5 point favorite.
What's the over-under?
52.5.
So we're 44. So they basically think we're going to shut them out.
Yeah.
Yeah, wild. All right, boys.
And, ULM is 2-0. So, I mean.
Yeah, well, for now. I'm taking the spread and the under. It's going for a 48-0 game. Fish at the top with DJ Nicky Snacks Crider. We'll see you guys next time with the Quan Cosby, and also will be appearing on ESPN 102.7 Austin. Get your horns up. We're 3-0, number 1 team in the nation for the first time in over a decade. Hopefully Quinn gets better soon, but great to see Arch out there. Peace.
Welcome.